So we continue. We're coming to the close of this book, A Prophet of Today by Rabbi Stephen Przansky. Where we left off before my wonderful trip to Eretz Yisrael, a place that is warm even in the winter, was with a conversation that had ensued between Kalev from the tribe of Yehuda and Yehoshua from the tribe of Ephraim, in which Kalev exerted his claim to the city of Hebron, and in so doing really was making clear that kingship should abide with the tribe of Yehuda, as prescribed both by Yaakov and Moshe, which indicated that after Yehoshua's leadership, the succession should not be within the tribe of Ephraim, but rather within the tribe of Yehuda. Yehoshua did not step down to honor Kalev. Yehoshua was a good 40 years older at that point, but he indicated that when the time comes, he's agreeable to this change. So that's where we are now. Yehoshua was the second leader of Israel after Moshe, but as a nation, right? Of course, we have the Avos before that, but as a nation, as a political entity, Yehoshua was the second leader of Israel, but in a sense, the first native homegrown leader. After all, he was the first leader in Israel. Moshe, to all intents and purposes, had been raised outside the family of Israel, first in the palace of Paro, and then as a fugitive for over 6 decades. Moshe returned to the Jewish people at the advanced age of 80, and not coincidentally, Moshe's leadership was constantly challenged by Dasan and Aviram, by Korach. Oops, I'm sorry, we've read this already.
Yeah,
we have read this. You didn't hear it? Okay. Okay, I'm going to summarize it for you, and then we'll move on. Mm-hmm. The point that the author is making here is that because Moshe was really like a stranger to the people, even though he proved himself through miracles and through holiness and through all the signs of leadership that one could have, he was constantly being nagged at. And it's from Dasan and Aviram, from Korach, from the spies, and it was like an endless tsuris that he had. This was not true for Yehoshua. He actually did quite well, and he got along very well with people. He seemed to have a very fine touch for when to be strong and when to be gentle, how to negotiate, how to be tough. And so he, for a very long time, he ruled Israel quite successfully with very little challenges, which is amazing when you think that he was filling the shoes of Moshe Rabbeinu. And there could have been a lot of room to say, well, I knew Jack Kennedy and you're no Jack Kennedy. They could have said, I knew Moshe Rabbeinu and you're no Moshe Rabbeinu. But somehow Yehoshua was the right man for the job at that point. It's clear, not just as a military leader, but as a political leader as well. When Kalev advanced his claim, right, Yehoshua didn't react by saying, wait a second, I was appointed to this, don't get in my way. He said, the time will come, right? And I'll just back up one paragraph. It was a great moment for Kalev, as his claim of leadership was accepted, although deferred. In due course, Kalev conquered Hebron and the environs around it, after enlisting the help of his stepbrother, Othniel ben Kenaz. Othniel was rewarded with Kalev's daughter, Achsa, as his wife. Yehoshua, and Othniel, after Yehoshua's death, became the first judge of Israel in Israel. Here too, the monarchy of Israel followed its natural progression from the tribe of Yosef to the tribe of Yehuda, already in the generation of Yehoshua and Kalev. Othniel was the first representative of the tribe of Yehuda to become a leader of Israel. Yehoshua is chosen by Hashem Yehoshua, chosen by Hashem, was the ideal leader for Israel for this time, for this era. He knew with whom to be firm and with whom to be gentle. Yehoshua understood well his role as a successor to Moshe and conqueror of the land, and his limitations as a ruler from the tribe of Yosef, and not Yehuda. As such, he never sought to restrain the burgeoning growth and power of the tribe of Yehuda. He saw himself, as all leaders from the tribe of Yosef did and would, as a transitional figure. It's a very important concept.
It's a self-limitation.
We're here to fill a gap of some kind, right? But we know from Yaakov himself and from Moshe himself that we are not destined to be the monarchs of the land of Israel. Yosef himself was a transitional ruler, guiding his family from Israel into Egyptian exile. Similarly, Yehoshua shepherded the Jewish people from exile back to the land of Israel. Shaul, the first king, a descendant of Rachel through Binyamin, was a connective link between the idea of monarchy and the ideal monarch. He was the first monarch, but not ideal, even though he was a great tzaddik. And interestingly enough, we see in Shaul the qualities of a tzaddik. He's described as literally head and shoulders above all others. Right? And yet, what we see is the destined ruler is not the quality of a tzaddik. It's the quality of a Hosei B'Teshuvah, somebody who is in the process of repairing damage, his own damage, other damage. Right? We see it in Yehuda with Tamar. Mm-hmm. We see it in the icon of monarchy, King David himself. Right? So it seems that this quality of a Hosei B'Teshuvah is really the quality that we're looking for in a monarch in Israel, as opposed to a tzaddik.
Because he can relate to the nation?
Because he's an example to the nation. You know, not everybody is a tzaddik, right? Everybody has the opportunity to be a Baal Tshuva, mm-hmm. right? By the way, even a tzaddik does, in fact. You can always improve. But we don't see it that way, right? We see that a tzaddik is not somebody who is supposed to fall. You know, he's supposed to be somebody who is beyond that stage, right, as described here, right? But a Hosei B'Teshuvah has much in common. We may not be able to identify, you know, with the tzaddik, but we should actually be able to identify with David HaMelech. Yeah.
Shaul, actually, who was a tzaddik, he actually fought. I think a problem with a tzaddik like this, he cannot...
It's very hard for them. It's very hard for a tzaddik to get back up. Tshuva is not his main characteristic. His main characteristic is he is without temptation. He's without sin. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not talking about the Rambam description of a tzaddik, but more the Hasidic one and the Kabbalistic one. Is somebody who is really without having to overcome sin. He's somebody at a very, very high level. Right?
But who certifies the person to be a tzaddik? So it's only after thousands of years we can say, oh yeah, he was during his life. Who appointed him to be a tzaddik?
Nobody appoints someone to be a tzaddik.
Not appointed, but
you can be appointed to be the head of a Hasidic movement.
Yeah.
You can't be appointed to be a tzaddik in this sense, right? The Baal Tanya makes clear that a tzaddik is not made; he's born. Mm-hmm. It's a unique quality. So a tzaddik, you know, he's not in our world because he's not overcoming temptation issues. He doesn't sense them. Right? He lives in a world in which those issues don't trouble him per se.
When does it become clear that he is a tzaddik? When he was born? 20 years later, or only after he is dead?
It's a good question. I would say that the people around him recognize this quality, whether it's his brothers and sisters. I know this sounds like the Dalai Lama to you. Whether it's his brothers and sisters, whether it's his schoolmates, it's a unique quality, you know. That is recognized, as someone to be declared a tzaddik, nobody's really declared a tzaddik in the sense of, okay, now we give you the crown of the tzaddik, right? It's just recognized that this person is different, right, than the rest of us, right? And by the way, it doesn't, as we can see here, it doesn't necessarily mean better, right? We understand that the tzaddik cannot stand where the Hosei B'Teshuvah stands, where the Baalei Teshuvah stands, right? Because he's not overcoming. We described that he nurtures in this world the root of good, the tzaddik, because he's all good. He is a nutrient of the root of good, so to speak, right? He has very little effect on the root of evil, because he doesn't, it's not something that's part of his life. Hosei B'Teshuvah and Baalei Teshuvah, right, cut at the root of evil in their efforts to overcome, right? This is a great merit, right? As well as they nourish the root of good in this world. So, in terms of when you get your stripes, you're like, okay, you were this, and you're this, and now you're a tzaddik. It's not like being a Talmud Chacham, right?
In Israel, we call it falafels.
Falafel? Oh, yeah. Right, yeah. Right. Somebody who's a Talmud Chacham, you can actually recognize because he knows Shas backward and forward, the Talmud backward and forward. He knows, he is like a walking hard drive and can access it, right? But the quality of a tzaddik is really all those things plus the midos of a tzaddik. Somebody who is driven only by the will of God. He's not impacted by anything else. So that we call Yosef a tzaddik. Yosef was not a particularly nice person a lot of the time. He moved the Egyptian people all over the place. He did to the Egyptians what some very evil rulers have since done. Right? He created a power structure that gave Paro all centralized power was in his hands. He literally enslaved the Egyptian people to Paro. And he created the environment where after his death, the Jewish people would find themselves enslaved by somebody who did not know Paro. So are these all the qualities of what we normally think of as tzaddik, which is somewhere, between Santa Claus and something else, a kindly old man with a white beard? No, a tzaddik is somebody who follows the will of God, understands it, follows it, wherever it will take him. So it's not just somebody who doesn't get angry when people say nasty things. It's much more than that.
So that's what you're explaining. Tzaddik, well, after he proved by his deeds, by his performance, by his achievements, like Yosef, sure, they said probably when he was at the helm of Egypt, oh, he's a tzaddik, our brother. But when the brothers were selling him away, this young kid,
they thought he was Asaph.
Did anybody say that he was a tzaddik?
No, absolutely not.
He was probably a nasty boy, as far as I
remember. And it doesn't work, description of Yosef, because he was tempted by Potiphar's wife.
And interestingly enough, all the descriptions, Yosef is not called Avos, he's not called Melech, he's only called tzaddik, which is interesting because he does not fit the definition that I just gave you of a tzaddik. He wasn't, he was a person who had great vanity in his youth. This is not the quality of a tzaddik. He was a person who caused anguish in his family. This is not the quality of a tzaddik. Right? It seems that he went through a change, which would almost indicate a Hosei B'Teshuvah when he was in prison, that changed his way of dealing with things. When he comes out of prison, and Paro says, I understand that you are uniquely qualified to interpret dreams. He said, me? No. God interprets dreams, not me. Right? Now, you could look at it and say that was a brilliant political move, because he's indicating I'm not even human. I'm being guided by the divine. Yeah. Right? And at the end of it, Paro says he's absolutely right, and we have to find somebody who is wise and thoughtful who can take us through these difficult times. Who might that be? Maybe it's the young man who just interpreted the dreams. And that's exactly what happened, right? And he had a meteoric rise to power. So one would look at that and say, well, was he born with all these qualities? Many would say, I think, yes, he was, but they were concealed even from him. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it. Yosef is called the tzaddik, by the way, not because where he ended up in Egypt when his brothers realized how powerful he was, but actually because when he was tempted by Potiphar, and your point is right, he was definitely tempted, he overcame the temptation.
Resisted.
And that itself is what gave him the name. Right? He lived up to it in other ways after. It's clear. But the title of tzaddik, it's not something that really has any material value at all. A Talmud Chacham at the end of the day, can get a good job, right? Jose Butravai, you look at him and say, look at the hurdles he overcame. Right? Tzaddik doesn't really have that. It's Lahavdil. I don't like to compare it to other highly spiritual, wise people, but you could, in some ways, do that. Yeah.
In Pirkei Avos, we have a description, actually, what is a chassid and what is a tzaddik.
Yeah, that's not the version we're talking about here, right, at all.
Because in other words, it's just a person who is righteous and does righteous, not more, not less.
That's right. And a chassid is beyond that. A tzaddik is someone who knows the law and acts according to the law, according to Pirkei Avos. But, the term tzaddik and chassid have had many reincarnations, over the years. Chassid in the time of the Gemara was not somebody who was necessarily following a Hasidic Rabbi by any means. It's a relatively new idea. There was the Baal Shem Tov brought a new meaning to it, and a new meaning to tzaddik came at the same time too. And because you really would want to be connected to a chassid, not to a tzaddik, if you based it on the Mishnah, because the chassid is someone who lives beyond the law, right? The tzaddik is someone who knows the law and lives to the law, right? But of course, that's completely reversed, as we understand today. The tzaddik is the leader of a Hasidic movement, and the Hasidim are the people who follow him. Right? So it really is, in some ways, turned on its head. Okay, onward. So at the end of the day, so we were up to Otniel. Yeah, we did that, right? Otniel was the first representative of the tribe Yehuda to become leader of Israel. And that's where we finished last week. Yehoshua chosen by... I read that. I'm sorry. I just had to find out where we are. Okay, so now it says, the descendants of Yosef always serve a preparatory role for the tribe of Yehuda, laying the groundwork and building the infrastructure for the royal house of Israel. It is possible for the Jewish people to be ruled by temporary figures whose gifts lie in one particular area of nation building and not another, in order to properly construct the foundation of the state. So this is a very important idea, is that there can be exceptions to the tribe of Yehuda ruling, but not as a dynasty. Right? Yosef's children did not succeed him as the leaders of Israel. Right? Moshe's children did not succeed him. He was from Levi. Right? Yehoshua's children did not succeed him. Right? They all had, many of them had very important roles, but not as the leaders of Israel per se. Right? We know one situation where this happened, right? Where a dynasty was created outside of, Shaul was one time. That was it. Right? But in the case of the Maccabees,
his son died together with him. Jonathan died together.
He had other sons. He had a lot of other sons too. Yeah. But the point here, and by the way, before he died, David was already anointed king. Right? We have one example of this, which was a disastrous one, of the need to destroy the Greek threat. The Maccabees, we've talked about this before, fought it. They won, and they should have realized very quickly, we need to step down. Right? Go back to our job. in the Beis Hamikdash. This is what we need to do, and we need to have Yehuda step forward and take its proper role as king. They didn't do it, and it ended up in the disaster eventually of Herod and Roman conquest. Right? So Yehoshua acknowledged this understanding that we're just individuals can serve, but not dynasties. And therefore the Jewish people were spared the leadership conflict so common among nations of the world when a new state is born. Who will be the first leader and who will be his successor? Often, even if the leader of the revolution had widespread acceptance, a major, usually violent struggle will erupt over the choice of his successor. We have lists of this thing. If there is a choice, the keeper of the flame. We were saved from that strife because of the greatness of Yehoshua, who accepted that the sons of Leah and the sons of Rachel will always be rival factions in the Jewish people, with different roles and strengths and weaknesses, but each indispensable to our national mission. Until the reunification occurs at the end of days, the Jewish leader must be able to finesse the various interests, competing factions, and sundry agendas that constitute the people of Israel. When the leader fails to do that, as in the split that took place in the generation after the reign of King Shlomo, the Jewish people divided into two warring groups, and the achievement of our destiny is thwarted. That was when it thwarted, stopped. And that was when Israel was divided into the northern and southern kingdoms of Israel and Yehuda. Such a postponement is natural when confronted with sorry, I left that important part here. Okay. In modern times, the leader of Israel have almost always focused on material issues: conquest, defense, security, economics, and fundamental questions of Jewish identity. The meaning of the substance of a Jewish state and the incorporation of Torah law and ethics into that state have been deferred. Such a postponement is natural when confronted with real and persistent threats to one's very existence, but it comes at a cost. The reluctance to accept or articulate the uniqueness of Jewish nationhood deprives many people of the passionate bond to Torah. Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, they might otherwise have said, and has a harmful strategic dimension. It's only recently, and I mean in the last 5 years, that Israel has been talking about not simply being accepted with the right to exist, but a very controversial statement: a right to exist as a Jewish state. As a Jewish state, right? And this is something that was added into the argument and was seen as tremendously provocative. I think it may have been even the current Prime Minister, Netanyahu, who began to use this phrase, the acceptance of Israel as a Jewish state. And at first, everybody was like, where do you come off saying that? I thought you were a democracy. Anybody can be part of it, right? And now there's an undercurrent, but that's the phrase that is used constantly, right? And it's a healthy thing, because that is what Israel was always intended to be, a Jewish state,
It came up just during the negotiations, just because...
Yeah, it's become central to it, We understand that, our neighbors may be able to accept the existence, of a state, because they keep losing wars to whatever that state is.
And they will never accept it.
And they don't seem to be able to try it, but they cannot chew and swallow the idea of a Jewish state. That just doesn't seem to be there. On the other hand, it's not a place where we should compromise, because if we look around the world, we need one Jewish state, and there is only one, and it's where it should be.
Look at the situation with France.
Yeah.
Where
not just France, everywhere.
Everywhere.
The reluctance to accept or articulate the uniqueness of Jewish nationhood deprives many people of the passionate bond to Torah, Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael they might otherwise have had, and has a harmful strategic dimension. It saps the will of the people in the face of the relentless hostility of the enemy. As they lack answers to the profound existential questions of our time, For what exactly are they fighting? It's a very important question. What are they fighting for? Is it simply a piece of land that's an open democracy? Is it a shelter for the Jewish people? Is it the destiny of the Jewish people? Israel is a refuge for the Jewish people, but a refuge for what purpose? What is it necessary or even important that the Jewish people survive? Transitional leaders or unidimensional leaders who may themselves lack a clear understanding of these issues are ill-equipped to offer proper guidance. That becomes the natural role of Torah authorities. Yet because, you see, part of it is, the statement the author is making is there's a unique quality to Israel beyond that which all other states have, the issues of defense, of economics, of education, all those things. There remains this kind of unique quality that, given early in the Torah to the Jewish people as a refuge, as a place, and as a place to fulfill their destiny. One of the reasons why things like birthright have had a remarkable amount of success when you consider how little time people spend on birthright is they become aware that it's not a country. It's more than a country. It's more than a religion. It is your relatives, your family. You end up taking pride in the achievements of total strangers because you suddenly realize they are you. Mm-hmm. And then when you look beyond that and say, look at the impact my cousins are having on the whole world, suddenly there's a very positive connection that people have, right? That doesn't happen by being part of the Jewish community in the Upper West Side of New York. It just doesn't happen. It's only because of this dimension where spirituality, where family ties, and I don't simply mean family ties of brothers and sisters, but family ties where virtually everybody you meet is somehow related to you in a very deep way. This, when you're confronted with it, changes your perspective. On top of it, when you look at the success in terms of instead of some of the very great disappointments we've had, it's a place and a focus of connection through positivity. And I understand that one of the great losses of the Beis Hamikdash was that that's exactly the purpose it served. More than anything else, it was a focus of the whole Jewish world that came together physically into that place. And there were other reasons that they came to it. And Israel is serving that purpose now for the Jewish people and will continue to, God willing, more and more as each day passes. But here they're concerned about what happens when that becomes the natural role of Torah authorities to heighten this awareness, right? Yet because in Israel they have often been perceived as tangential, as on the tangent, to the affairs of state, they have often intentionally made themselves tangential to the affairs of state by declining to participate fully in state building or national defense. They have been unfortunately relegated to the sidelines. There has been recently some gradual change as recognition of the dangers of an ambiguous national identity has grown, and there must be further change until the leadership of Israel, of the Jewish people, embraces the ideals of Torah as a national policy and perceives the Torah not as ritual law, but as the constitution and the foundation of the Jewish people. So this is a very controversial statement. Mm-hmm. Right? He's saying that one of the basic rules of democracy, which came to us from the United States, the separation of church and state, does not apply here. That the Constitution of Israel should in fact be the Torah. Now that requires a tremendous understanding of the Torah as something simply beyond requirements and restrictions of daily life. but to understand the true role of the Torah as an enlightened document for governance.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, why not?
It's idea that halacha become the law of the land. It required halacha to be very, very flexible and understanding, because it can sound as scary as somebody says Sharia gonna be law of the land.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would venture to say, and this is I say it with a certain amount of trepidation, and we were talking about this earlier, that I think that for both Israel, the nation and the people, and Torah, God's word, to be fulfilled, there needs to be some significant examination and interpretation of halacha. I'll just tell a very brief story, which some of you have heard already, but it's worth telling. A close friend of mine comes from a religious family, lives in Israel, and his daughter chose to enlist in the IDF for 3 years. And I saw recently her, and she asked me a question. It was a very interesting question. She said to me, I've enlisted in a combat unit, and I'm committed to give my life for Israel, for the people of Israel, and for the state of Israel. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be at the Kosovo, and they're going to give me my chumash and my rifle, and I'm going to swear an allegiance to the state of Israel. But am I? Religious Jews, observant Jews, don't swear. They affirm a certain point of view, because we don't take God's name in vain. She understood. But this is not like going to court, and this is not like a normal situation. I have made this commitment. My life is on the line. I want to swear this allegiance. Can I do it? And I have to tell you, I couldn't answer the question. I said, you can't ask that question of a rabbi from Thornhill. I live in a different world. Right? For 2,000 years, we have not been confronted with that question, and thank God we are. We've not been confronted with, should a person swear to God an allegiance to a Jewish state? Right? We haven't been there. We haven't been there. I advised her, I said, go to the Rav of your unit and put the question to him. It's something that he has to deal with. But my point in saying this is that the state of Israel, a Jewish state, right, which has not existed for 2,000 years, raises very, very important questions. And that's just a small example, right? And halacha will inevitably be impacted by this reality and will adjust. I'm not saying the Torah is being rewritten, it's bizarre. But halacha always adjusts. It always sees reality, it always looks back, it never changes in the sense of violates a precept that already exists. But for sure, it looks at precedent very carefully and says, how does it apply today when we have a state of Israel as opposed to when we didn't? Right? And these are issues that are for sure going to be part of the adaptation that we have to go through.
I have a question. What you're talking about, the girl is like she wants to have the oath to...
Yeah.
Military oath.
But they do it every time. I saw it myself at the Kotel.
No, you don't understand. It's normal for the army, for the soldiers at this time, to swear an allegiance. Right?
Even the religious
But
guys
religious
don't
girls.
keep
The question is, what do the religious people do in that situation?
Oh, okay.
Those people who are,
Because it's
you know,
all just
are from
doing
people.
This also the quota.
It's not. No, that's not necessarily true. Not everybody is. You, of course, when you enlist in the Tsar's army, you take an oath, right? Everybody does, right? Her question was, the group of us that are Shomer Mitzvahs, that are Shomer Shabbos, right? Grown up that way, live that way, right?
Yeah.
We have learned that we don't swear. When we go to court, we don't swear.
Can she say, "Bleed, man"?
That's her whole point. She doesn't actually want to say bli neder. That is actually the root of her point. Is anybody can say, "I'm going to do this," it takes the form of an oath, and say bli neder, right? She's saying that's exactly what I don't want to do, right? I've made a determination of my own what I'm going to do. Everybody in my unit, they're all Jews, right? Is going to take an oath, right? Are we the individuals that take pride in the fact that we're Shomer Mitzvah, we're Shomer Shabbos, right? Are we prohibited from this? Are we limited to affirming it? Right? That's her question, right? It's a very good question, but more important than that is it reveals issues that we have not faced because we lived for 2,000 years without a nation. And all of these things need to be examined, you know, in the light of Jewish nationhood.
It should be just reviewed everything just to
Gradually, you know, I mean, halakha doesn't change quickly.
No.
It does adapt, right? It looks at the realities of the situation, and it sees it in, you know, interestingly, you know, other courts work the same way. Precedent, you know, and it looks at
years ago,
what?
2,500 years ago, we had army with King David, with Solomon. What they did there?
For 2,000 years, we haven't, and so for 2,000 years,
We just have to go back.
So that's actually that's actually the important thing, right? Is that there are those who will argue, are you comparing the nation we have today to the nation we had under King David? By the way,
Answer is yes.
by the way,
We're better.
No.
but by the way, we should be very careful about examining who they were and who we are, right? And I don't want to get into that discussion now. But all I wanted to say was that it's clear that there is a major change that's happened as a result of the land of Israel, the state of Israel, our sovereignty over it, with its imperfections and all those things. It's a different world, right? And quite frankly, I think all of us know that the difference between 2014 and 1937-38 is the land of Israel. At the end of the day, it's the land of Israel. There will not be a place that there will be places that say you can't come here. There's one place where we know we can go, right? And we can fight there if necessary, not just take refuge.
we have home. So you can
Anyway, let's try and get through. We're almost to the end of this section. I want to try and get through, okay?
And that's what they become like it very much.
So the point here is that Torah as a national policy perceives the Torah not as ritual law, but as a constitution foundation of the Jewish people. Indeed, Mashiach is characterized as skin of the house of David, descendant from the house of David, who mediates in Torah and is involved in mitzvah like David, who through the force of his personality compels Torah observance, fights Hashem's battles, such as a leader is presumed to be the Mashiach, and if he builds the base of Mikdash and gathers the exiles, he is certainly the Mashiach. The true Jewish leader, therefore, synthesizes the spiritual, political, and material aspects of Jewish national life, without any dichotomy, embarrassment, or inner contradiction. He is a leader who recognizes the continuity of Jewish life from the Avos to Sinai today, to today, and sees his nation as the heirs of Hashem's covenant to the forefathers. He perceives his mission as magnifying the name of Hashem and his Torah among the Jewish people and the world. We await that leader eagerly and desperately. One of the goals of Yehoshua's leadership was the ratification of Yehuda as the royal house of Israel and the acknowledgement that he, Yehoshua, was but a temporary steward at Hashem's bidding of the government of Israel. He relinquished power quite readily and did not seek to choose his successor. He averted a struggle over succession, even if the period of the Shoftim judges would be marked by inconsistent leadership and social chaos. The nation knew that they were biding their time until the foundation of the Jewish monarchy was laid. The rapprochement between Caleb and Yehoshua cemented the framework of leadership in Israel and the orderly transition of power. It confirmed for all time two basic principles of Jewish life that guide us until today, aside from the allotment of the land of Israel. The tribe of Yehuda as the natural leaders of Israel, and our connection to the land as grounded in the covenant of the Avos. Granting of Hebron to Caleb and all that implied was in essence Yehoshua's final decision as a leader. It is therefore his legacy and an everlasting expression of his greatness, as it precluded a leadership struggle, reinforced the political norms of the Torah, and kept the people focused on the goal of building the land of Israel as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. In summary, the special conveyance of the city of Hebron to Caleb highlighted the covenant with the Avos as our true title to the land, and substantiated the royal claims of the house of Yehuda. It is a reminder that the Jewish people can be governed by transitional leaders who focus on conquest and material construction of the land, while awaiting the permanent Torah leaders who synthesize the material and the spiritual, and consecrate all aspects of the land of Israel to do the service of God. And so ends this chapter.